Happy Friday, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. We're just giving it a moment or two for folks to get settled into this virtual learning community. I am Dr. Nika White, and my pronouns are she, her. I am the founder and lead principal consultant for NWC, and we are so glad that you're here today. So let's just take a moment to see who's all going to be joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and invite you to share in the chat where you are joining the conversation from. There are many people that catch us by registering in advance, and they're a part of our Zoom community where they're live and we're able to communicate with each other through the chat. But then we also have a group of individuals that will join us by LinkedIn Live. And so in whatever capacity in which you're taking part in today's episode of Intentional Conversations, welcome. We know that you could spend this hour doing so many different things, and we don't take it lightly when people decide to spend this hour with us. This is our 5th year anniversary of Intentional Conversations, and we're super excited about that milestone. We've been celebrating all year long with different ways of just showcasing the efficacy of the work and the effort behind the 5-year journey that we've been on so far. But we cannot be here without the support of this community. So just want to make sure that you know how grateful we are. At NWC, we truly value disability inclusion, and as such, we do have the closed caption feature that has been enabled for those that will find that a way to enhance your experience today. So make sure that you are aware of that option. I also want to let you know that if at any time during today's conversation something resonates with you, we love a lively chat. Certainly place those emojis, reactions, sentiments, affirmations, expressions into the chat. And if you're joining us by LinkedIn Live, not to worry, we're watching the comment section. We're bringing all of those sentiments into the chat over here so we can be connected as one big group. So we're just so glad you're here today, and I hope that you will enjoy today's show. We have a great lineup for you. I can't wait to introduce my guest co-host, and let's not further delay the hour. Welcome again to Intentional Conversations podcast. Enjoy the show. Let the conversations begin. And that is precisely what we are going to do at this time. If you're just tuning in, this is Intentional Conversations podcast, and I am your host, Dr. Nika White. As you know, one of the things we love to do here at NWC at the top of the hour for Intentional Conversations is just amplify some of the national observances that are taking place during the month. And it is National Black Business Month. And so as a Black woman founder, I dare not miss this opportunity to amplify the importance of economic inclusion and supporting Black businesses. And so I hope that you will find a Black business that's in your network that you can start supporting, that you can start putting on to others so they can be also willing to support them. But we all need to work together because the rising tide lifts all boats. And I want us to make sure that not only we magnify this particular point during the month of August, but even every month thereafter. We have great resources at NWC that we like to make available just as a courtesy. It's our way of continuing to spread the knowledge. And I have written a new piece. It's called Burnout by Budget. And this relates to how financial stress creates emotional fragility in leaders and what to do about it. You all know that I'm really big into emotional regulation. And what I'm finding right now in this economic downturn is that leaders are being compromised if they aren't able to regulate their emotions around the financial stress. And so I wrote about it, and I want you to be able to benefit from it. So share it out. My team will actually place the link to this article into the chat and into the comment section of LinkedIn Live, if that's where you're catching us today. But I hope that you will find it as a great resource. Speaking of resources, we are almost there to the big day of August 27th. This is a free masterclass that I've been talking about for quite some time now. It is based on Anchor Your Power Through Emotional Authority. This is part of our Boundless movement, and I am going to be bringing forth along with me as a special guest my personal emotional regulation coach, Mickey Bay. She was actually our guest co-host recently on Intentional Conversations podcast. If you were part of that topic, you know that it was a very, very enriching engagement and dialogue. Well, just imagine what it's going to be like in a 90-day masterclass. And so please join us. We're going to drop the link. It's free. There's no reason not to join us. It is next Wednesday, and we'll be able to be in community with each other. If this is not for you, then please share it out with others that you think would gain a lot of value and benefit and we appreciate you in advance. Now, I want to give you a little bit of what you have to look forward to in future weeks. And I'm super excited because if you know anything about Lisa Hurley and you know about how she shows up in the world, then you know that it's going to be a great conversation next Friday. But Lisa Hurley will talk about her newly released book, Space to Exhale. She'll talk about her journey of being a writer and authorship. And she'll also talk about rest, soft living, self-love, affirmations, joy, all the things that embody who she is and that she is placed into this love letter of a book that she's written to Black women, but not just for Black women, it's for Black women, but specifically it's also for others who want to support Black women in a much more intentional way. So I hope that you will check us out and be here, part of our community on Friday, August 29th, as we close out the month with Lisa Hurley. It's going to be a great show. Now, we're at that point in time where I get the distinct pleasure of providing a formal introduction to today's guest co-host. And how I like to do this for those who have been with us quite some time, or maybe you're new and you don't know this, is I like to read the individual's bio. I think that it's important for our community to know the credentials, the accolades, the experiences, the different intersecting identities in which our guest co-host shows up to the conversation with, so that you can understand the power of their voice of authority. And so I do that by sharing their bio. So today will be no different. My guest today is Gisele Marcus. She is a native New Yorker raised in Old Harlem. Gisele is a TEDx speaker on networking and relationship building. Gisele takes the fear out of networking and offers practical, easy to implement ideas to network your way to your next. She possesses an MBA from Harvard Business School and is an operations executive who makes organizations hum. Some national organizations that she's spoken for include so many Association Chamber Executives, National Sales Network, Syracuse University. Globally, she has been a keynote speaker for Autodesk and Banks of South Africa. I'm gonna get you to pronounce that bank for me because I don't want to butcher it. She has been featured in the Huffington Post, Black Enterprise, the Milwaukee Business Journal, and the St. Louis Business Journal. She's a lover of international travel, and her favorite continent is Africa, where she has explored 11 countries. So I want you to find those emojis, those reactions, all the things, right? Words of affirmation. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen as I bring Gisele into the spotlight. I'm adding her now. Let her know how appreciative we are that she's here with us. Let her know how much we are grateful to be able to have her share her insight and wisdom with us today. And Gisele, I'm going to allow you to greet the audience in your own way. But before I do, there's a couple things I want to make sure that you are aware of. First, I do want to make sure we get the name of the bank correct because that feels important to me. So I do want you to give me the name of the bank. But then we have a tradition here. I want you to share with us something that we would not know by hearing your bio, which we've just done, or by looking at your LinkedIn profile. So welcome, Gisele. So glad you're here.
So excited to be here, Nika. Thank you so much for welcoming me. And the name of that bank is Amalgamated Banks of South Africa, APSA. And what was your second question?
Yes. So what can you share with us that we would not know from hearing your bio or from
Sure.
looking at your LinkedIn profile? Thank you for the correction on the bank's name. I appreciate that.
No worries. What you would not know is that I am a newlywed.
Oh,
Yes. Let's just say that I
fantastic.
am just got married last summer at the intersection of already having my AARP card. So that'll tell you a little bit about what age I'm over.
Oh, I'm
And
witnesses.
yes, and as a result of that, I am proud to say I reunited with a sweetheart who we dated 20 years ago. We had a 16-year gap, and the person who brought us back together is the person who introduced us on a blind date 20 years prior.
Wow. I have goosebumps. I love that story. And I'll tell you why I have goosebumps. My team knows this. They're going to be like, okay, I know where she's going with this. So
Okay.
a little bit of personal data. And some of you know this if you follow me because I've been socializing it because my family is just overjoyed. But my daughter recently got engaged. My daughter's 25 and she got engaged last weekend in San Francisco. But the interesting part about it that I think connects with your story, Gisele, is that myself, and his mother introduced the two of them. And that was
Oh,
like
wow.
maybe 3-ish years ago. And now they're getting married.
Oh, that's so exciting. No way better, because that means that the mother's already approved.
You go. And I thought at first that she was going to be like, oh, so now I got to tell people that my mom is the one that hooked us up. So she likes to say it's an arranged marriage. No, it's not anything like that. But she is very happy that her person is someone that the mom's connected. And I never
I
thought that
love
she would
that.
react that way. But she's happy about that. And I love that for her. And I love that for us too. But no, but it is such a
Congratulations.
beautiful time. And so congratulations to you as well. And thank you for sharing that news because it just gave me also a chance to kind of share a little bit of my personal slice of life right now. So I'm grateful. Now let's jump right in because we have a lot to talk about today. I would love for you to just give us kind of an overview. We've read your bio, of course, but let us know what led you to the work that you're doing now. What was the impetus of the inspiration that led you to this is my calling? This is where I want to plant my tent. This is what I want to do as I support people.
Sure. Well, I really learned about the importance of networking when I was 39. And I learned about it because I was on an expatriate assignment. So I was working on a assignment abroad. At the time, I was working for Johnson Controls. And I was curious about how would I, after coming back from that assignment, ensure that I had a role. And because I'm just very meticulous about planning, etc. And I talked to the gentleman at my company who was responsible for signing off on the expat assignments. And what he told me was, you need to make sure that you are visible to us while you're away. So I went to South Africa for a full year, and he told me a story about a young man who had went to Europe for 3 years on an expat assignment, came back, and a lot of the leaders had changed. People had somewhat forgotten that he was gone. So he said, you don't want this to happen to you. And he cautioned me. He said that you would want to come back to the headquarters at least once a quarter to meet with your mentors and your sponsors. And he said, of which I will be one. And he reported directly to the CEO. So I actually followed what he asked me to do. And by doing that, in the end, I really reaped some amazing benefits and rewards. I was concerned about having one opportunity. When I came back, I actually had 11 job opportunities to choose from, of which three of them I felt were great for me. And I chose one where I actually had the first opportunity to actually be a general manager and have profit and loss responsibility for a business that was $800 million globally. So because, and I should say this, I am first generation college. My parents' highest level of education is high school. So, and my parents divorced and separated when I was really young. So I was primarily raised by my mother and my grandmother. And my mother would always tell me in the workplace, be smart, keep your head down, do your work, mind your business. And that's what I had been doing. And she said, and by doing those things, you'll get promoted. Well, I learned that there's a little bit more to that promotion formula than just those things. And it was the networking piece that was missing, but she didn't know to tell me that because my mother's worked for the phone company for like 45 years, right?
Yeah.
So through that experience, I learned the importance of networking and how to do it authentically. And it just was heavy on my spirit to actually share that with others because if I would have known that maybe 20 years prior, I think my career and my life would exponentially be better now. So I built a platform to be able to share that with others.
I love this so much. Let me tell you some of the thoughts that are coming up for me just in what you just shared. First and foremost, the gratitude that I'm sure you must have, and we all have to have when we encounter people that care enough to invest in setting us up for success, that can plant those seeds through coaching, mentoring, whatever it is. I think that's really important. Secondly, I'm also thinking about the fact that networking there's a special art to it. It's not something a lot of times when people call something networking, I don't think it's really networking, and I believe that you're going to help us to unpack today literally what it is and what it is when it's done effectively because there's a spectrum there and there's a difference, right? But then I also think about the fact that we're in this era where so many workplaces are distributed because of the hybrid work environment that started of course after the pandemic, and so the visibility aspect sometimes can fall by the wayside if we aren't intentional. So there's a lot of things that are coming up into this broader context of the importance of visibility, of networking, and allowing that to be a way that you are doing your career pathing to be able to reach the trajectory that you could be interested in. So I just want to pause there for a second and let you kind of respond to it in your own way.
Sure. So you are right. The word networking, sometimes when people hear it, they actually want to run in the other direction.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I believe it's because the term has gotten a bad rap, like some other terms, right?
Yeah.
Um, and really, what it's really about building a two-way, authentic relationship.
Yeah.
So if networking is a term that sounds that feels like it has a negative connotation, I believe it does when people are doing it in an inauthentic way.
So true.
And when you're doing it authentically, and what I mean by doing it authentically is it ideally feels like second nature to you. Like it doesn't feel like you're pushing or forcing something. And
Yes.
I think that's
Yes.
the inauthentic piece or component of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it makes a difference in how in which someone may respond in terms of accepting that networking kind of connection point or not. I see a lot of criticism on like the LinkedIn, platform where folks are being very put off by people sliding into their DMs without something of value, and how that is not the way that you appropriately network. And I think that a lot of it too is about the authenticity, and the authenticity comes when there is a true, genuine desire to build a relationship that is reciprocal. There's mutual benefit to it. And so that's one thing that comes up for me. So tell us about some of the strategies that you often will encourage people to leverage when they're trying to effectively network.
Certainly. So I'm glad you mentioned LinkedIn. So that's a platform that I use quite a bit. And it's a platform where I would say 95% of the people that I am connected to, I actually know who they are, how I'm connected to them, and why I'm connected to them. So one one other thing I think is really important is to just share some useful tips because I love after people hear me speak that you're able to immediately do something different. You don't have to take notes here and say, I'm going to do that next week or next month and not possibly get to it. So here's one thing that I do with, first of all, let me tell you what drives me crazy about LinkedIn. So sometimes someone will connect to me. There's no note, no message, I see they're connected to other people I know. So automatically I think, well, maybe I must know this person. So I'll ask a couple people that we have shared connection. I'm like, hey, do you know Mary Pat? They're like, oh, I don't know her. It's like, well, why is that person in your network if you don't know them? Right. So one thing that I always do, and I want to share this with you all, and it may be a practice that may work for you as well. Whenever I meet someone in LinkedIn, my first or my second chat DM to them is about how I know them. So even for this show, if you would love to connect with me on LinkedIn, I would say do that and tell me that you met me here. Because that way, next year, when I see you post something, I will say, how do I know that person? I'll say, oh, that person was actually on NWC, right? So
Yeah.
that's the first thing. So always know how you know someone, right? Now, when you are wanting to get to know someone, people are usually welcoming to say yes if you grab their attention. So, like you
Sure.
said, if it's reciprocal, people love to hear things about themselves, right? Who does not? So, in connecting, sometimes out, and this is in person or even in LinkedIn, if there's someone that you want to meet, I often say, find out something about that person that's somewhat unique or something that you have in common with that person. For example, I'm someone who has been a host mom in terms of like study abroad programs.
Yes.
So say if there's someone that I want to connect, and I hosted a young lady that was from Ghana for her junior year in high school. here in the United States. So say if there was someone that I wanted to get to know and say I'm interested in doing a speaking engagement for that person, that's something that I do. And I may say to that person, hey, I see you and I have AFS USA as an organization that I go through for this study abroad. And I'd say, hey, I see that we both do it. I'll say, hey, I was a host mom, for a young lady from Ghana. It was a great experience. So now I'm actually connecting with them on something that is of interest to them, and I'm not necessarily going to go in initially with what it is I'm asking for. I don't know this person from a can of paint. So to ask people to do you a favor or do something for you, and you haven't had the pleasure of meeting them, that is not an authentic way to connect, in my opinion. Okay. So I start with that. And then I may ask for if they're not in the same city as me, maybe for a virtual coffee or whatever your favorite daytime beverage is. If it's someone that's in town, I may ask for an in-person meeting. But I never connect to someone with it being a cold connection. And it's so easy now with the internet to be
Yeah.
able to find out about these different nuances about people because it's right there at our fingertips. You can even use artificial intelligence to find these things out. So it's made easy for you. So use the tools that you have to actually grab someone's attention.
This is really good. And I love the fact that you're giving us some practical, tips that we can apply immediately. So I was stopped in my tracks when you said 95% of your LinkedIn connections, you know how you are connected to them. Okay, so don't put me out here by myself, y'all, because I'm thinking there's probably some of you all that are probably in a similar camp as myself. I have maybe, I don't know, 30 something thousand LinkedIn connections. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that I do not have a 95% rate of people that I can tell you exactly how I'm connected to them. But what I also realize is that a lot of the work that I do a lot of speaking. It positions me as this public entity to where a lot of people know me and I don't know them. And so I feel this sense of obligation is a strong word because I also want to connect with other people as well, right? And so I do tend to, if I don't necessarily know you, but I can look at your profile, see we have a lot of connection points, see that there's some common ground in terms of the space that we're both are in, that I may accept you. Yes, absolutely. So for those maybe in my camp, right? What would you say? How would you advise us? Do we need to now go and do some big kind of clean sweep, or is there another approach that some additional insight you could bring for those of us who fall into that situation?
Sure. So for someone like yourself that has 30,000, that's different, right? It's difficult to know 30,000 people. And if in fact you have a platform like this, people want to connect to you because they want to follow you. So I think
Yes.
that's something different in
Okay.
terms of you being able to expand your reach. So
Yes.
I'm so
Okay.
glad you mentioned that because I think then it also let's layer in the purpose as to why you're on social
Yes.
media, right?
Okay. Thank you.
So when we think about your purpose and 30,000 people and you're not knowing them all, that makes sense,
Okay.
right?
Very
For
helpful.
me, my purpose, I don't have 30,000. I would aspire to have that. But in the interim, I try to, whenever I do speak, say, if you connect, let me know you met me here. And that's simple enough. Or it's also sometimes time based. So right after you've
Right.
done something,
Oh
if
yes.
you see a flurry come in, you can pretty much assume it's because you saw me at, and then I'll say, hey, did you see me at such and such? And it's just
Yeah.
pretty, it's quick to do. So I would say keep your goal in mind. Now, for me, my goal is really to expand my platform to be able to speak about networking. I also am a professor, and I teach us on the subject matter of like cultural fluency and inclusive leadership.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm looking for more, and I'm a professor of practice versus a tenured professor.
Yeah.
So it's important for me to be in practice with the work that I do. So
Yes.
I'm looking for more opportunities to be able to do consulting engagements, to be able to bring my students to be able to solve problems for companies, and for me to be able to be on platforms like these to share my networking tips. So given my particular goal, I think it's going to be easier for me to say, I want to know everyone in my network and why. So
Right,
that, because what has happened sometimes is I do get opportunities to speak or consult based on LinkedIn. And it
right.
makes it easy when I say, I met them at NWC. And then I'm going to come back to Nika and say, Nika, when I was on your program,
You're muted. Somehow you got muted, Gisele.
sorry about that.
But you
So
said
then
what? Yes. So then they know when I saw you on intentional conversations. That's the connection point.
exactly. And then I can come back to you and say, Nika, look what happened. As a result of me being on your program, I now have a set of students that are doing an experiential learning project about inclusive leadership at ABC Company, thanks to you. Because I always like to also come back and close that loop so that the person that helped me make the connection realizes how important it was the two of us connecting.
Yes, no, that's so good. That's so good. What's coming to mind for me is that it definitely takes planning, intentionality, because it is easy for busy individuals to try to cut corners, right? And not take care of all of these courtesies that can only help strengthen a relationship that you're trying to nurture. So I appreciate this so much. And Tracy, I'm seeing your note in chat. She says, I'm with you, Dr. Nika. Don't feel bad. But now I'm thinking about branding and I want to be more selective. And so something that I would share with that, I think that when you are branding, it's more about the awareness and the reach, right? And so being selective may not be exactly what you want to do. Now, there's a spectrum there when we say selective. How are we defining that for sure? But my point is that sometimes when you are looking to establish yourself as a brand, that awareness and that reach is really important. So selectivity could maybe put some people out of your, not expose some people to you that you do want to be exposed to you. So one of the things that you mentioned, Gisele, at the beginning is that, maybe networking needs to be rebranded because there's a lot of negativity around networking, especially for those who are introverts. They really are intimidated by what is kind of seen as networking. And so how do you help people take the fear out of networking? And why do you think that it still continues to feel so intimidating to people?
I think it's intimidating to people because there aren't enough people talking about how to do it and what it is and how it can be helpful to you and the importance of having a plan for what it is what your objective is for networking. And when you have a plan, I believe it's a lot easier for you to then say, what are the places and space, where are the places and spaces where I need to be, right? And I'm so glad you brought up introverts. I think that is very important. And I believe that sometimes we forget that we live in a world where we have extroverts, we have introverts, we have ambiverts, all
Yep.
things in between.
Ambivert. Yep.
And and what I would say for someone that's an introvert, and I keep threatening to write an article about this. So now that this is coming up again, it reminds me I need to. And what I say to them, first of all, we should know that people that are introverts are very exhausted by this whole thought of having to speak to multiple people in a venue, right? So my advice to them is, so I live from New York City, as you said, but I live in St. Louis, which is a city that is very generous. So we have a lot of events, fundraisers for nonprofits, and they often come with a meal. And then before that, there's a reception. And these types of receptions are things that introverts are like, get me out of here. Do I have to go? They're like, no, thank you. I'd rather not go. So my advice to them is always this: go to the event, pick a number of people you want to meet, 2 people, 3 people. Once you've done that, you have done what you need to do. Now the question is, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And this is the advice that I give to introverts. When you walk into, let's say it's an in-person event, and you see there's always groups of people that are likely chatting with each other, and it gives you the impression they've known each other forever. And if you're an introvert, to be able to jump into that conversation is something that you do not want to do. So what I advise introverts to do is when you're in those rooms, look for the other people who are by themselves.
Okay.
because typically that person would love to talk to someone. And if they're not engaged in a conversation with someone and you approach them, it's a lot easier than breaking into a conversation that's in play with 4 or 5 people. So if
Yeah,
you
that's
do
good.
that, so if you do that twice, 3 times, you can then go leave that room, take a break until the dinner starts, and then you might have given yourself a half hour just to be able to breathe and be ready for the dinner. So that's one thing I would advise for people that lead people, work on teams. Always remember the introvert, because the other thing that they don't appreciate are these back to back to back meetings with no breaks.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
keep that in mind, that, and that's just when I teach this inclusive leadership, this is something that I talk about, is remember you have people come in all flavors. And for you to get the best outcome from them, you need to know, not necessarily know about them, but be prepared to plan in a way as if they were introverts, right? So that way there is a comfort for them being able to receive the information. You're not sending them home totally exhausted, because the constant talking, the back to back, that's very exhausting them. They go home and they're just like, I am flat out tired, done, period. I can't do one more thing.
Yes.
So I always just say, just keep them in mind. So again, we don't call that networking, right? At work. When we do that for people, it's really more of a practice of, I want to make sure that I am being inclusive of the
Yes.
people that I am actually bringing together. And the word networking doesn't even come up.
Right. Right. Not at all. That's really good. We're getting some good chatter happening into the to the chat here. So thank you all for engaging in that way. It brings to mind a couple different things. So the first is, yes, we have to make sure that we're expanding the diversity conversation to think about dimensions outside of like age, race, and gender. How people, like to be communicated with, whether they're introvert, extrovert. You mentioned ambivert. I realized several years ago, first time I heard ambivert, I was like, oh, I never heard it before, but that's me, that's me, that's me. And I am clearly identifying now as an ambivert the older that I get, because once I have, spent a day of like, presenting, teaching, meetings, facilitating, I am done. I don't want to make any more decisions. I don't want to talk to anybody else, and I have to manage my energy in that way. So I do think that it's important for us to think about some of these small tips we could implement and just into our day to day. Even what you mentioned about the back to back meetings, we are notorious for not allowing just a small transition break for bio, to hydrate ourselves, to stretch our legs. I mean, there's so many things we don't think about, and it's become a challenge. So much so to where some organizations that I know that I've worked with, they've said it was such an issue that we had to implement a policy that meetings are no longer 60 minutes. They're now 55 minutes, or they're 5 minutes shorter than what normally you would schedule like an hour or a half hour meeting for, just because we need to allow people that time to be able to shift. And so I even think about my own situation. There are times when I'll get a lot of folks who want to connect, like for networking calls and virtual coffees and that sort of thing. And I always appreciate that, but I do have to manage that. So typically, I have this arrangement with my amazing EA where I'll say to her, "Is this a networking call? If it is, let's push it out a little bit further. This is a really, really busy week, you know." And I think it's okay for us to be able to manage our energy and not feel bad about, okay, I can't connect with that person immediately. We do have to make sure that it's going to be worthwhile, because what you don't want to do is show up knowing that you're in this mind space where you're distracted, you're really not able to entertain what they are connecting with you for, and it feels very inauthentic, right? And so just wanted to share that.
Nika, you bring up a good point. Something that I started doing, because I was running into that too, where a number of people want to spend time with you, right? And you're one person, so your time is limited. So what I've started doing is having my assistant actually, if the person that wants to meet with me is okay with it, having small groups of 3 to 5, whether that's virtual or in person, just as a meet and greet, so that the other people can meet each other too. So instead of having a half hour with 5 people, it may become 45 minutes with 5 people that can then also meet
Uh,
each other.
I never thought about that. So So let me kind of ask the questions that could be, coming up for others, because this is my curiosity too, by the way. But I would love to think that others have this question as well. I most often, as someone who appreciates networking, connecting with people, I most often like doing that one to one. So if I'm going to take the time to actually reach out and to establish that rapport, try to cultivate and nurture a relationship to be able to get time with that person, I really am looking for one on one time. And so I would feel a little odd if someone were to invite me into more of like a grouping type, because it wouldn't feel the same. I don't think that even my objectives would be the same. And so I just wanted to toss that out there to get you
Sure.
to react to that, to tell me, am I thinking about this wrong? Is there, because there's probably a time and space
Right.
for that, of course, but
Mhm.
I think also for me, if I am being that intentional, it is a very explicit conversation that I want to have one to one.
Got it. So it depends on the purpose.
Yeah.
And my assistant will give them the option. So it'll usually go something like this. Gisele could meet with you one on one. That will probably be 45 days out.
Yep.
She could meet with you in a group format because my taglines, I make organizations hum. But in terms of the work that I do in terms of networking, I'm the connection champion. So in so being able to connect others, and she'll say, well, she's also having this um gathering, this small group gathering to connect people with one another. And if you'd
Got
like
it.
to do that, she can do that in the next 2 weeks. So the person is actually given an option, and then
Got it.
sometimes she'll ask me if she can't ferret it out. Is this someone that? Because to your point, there are some things that have to be one on one. The challenge just becomes at a point we
Yeah.
run out of hours in the day.
Absolutely. 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 Okay, so I'm seeing a question into the chat that I want to bring forth. This is from Denise Williams. Thank you, Denise. She is saying that she's appreciating your advice. She's tried that, but don't know how to break the awkward silence at the end and walk away to start the next network engagement. Any advice on that? And this is when we were talking, Gisele, about your very great sage advice of, if you're an introvert and you walk into a space, find someone maybe that's alone versus going into a group that's already in a conversation.
Yes. So this is where conversation starters are good for you to have in your hip pocket, right? So to your point, when you approach the person, it's like, and then what do I say?
Yeah.
So oftentimes, if it is one of these networking events, like these pre-receptions, it's something as easy as, what brought you to this event? Because
Yeah.
it's usually a fundraiser about something. It's some kids, it's medical, it's healthcare. So what brought you here? So there was a reason that you decided to come here versus go somewhere else tonight. So
Right.
that's one question. Here in St. Louis, it is a big deal to ask, what high school did you go to?
Really?
For oh my gosh, yes, for a myriad of reasons.
Okay.
So for here, geographically, that could be something that someone might ask, and people will gravitate to it. Now, and then when I lived in Texas, oftentimes people would, the Bible Belt, people would often say, well, what
What,
church do you go
what
to?
church you go to? Yeah. So yeah, some
Right.
local nuance to maybe what those, starter questions could be.
Hmm. Or sometimes, just like you, Nika, those are some pretty sharp glasses. You can also compliment someone.
Yeah.
Hey, I see, or I see you're here, by yourself. Are you meeting someone here? Did someone invite you here? Just some real simple conversation starters just to get people to open up, and something that's not too invasive of a question for someone that you don't know. So that's what I would suggest.
I love that. I love the conversation starters in your back pocket. It brings me to, recall lots and lots and lots of years ago when I worked at a large chamber in South Carolina. As you would bring together a lot of different business owners for networking, because that's where the opportunities present themselves, right? And so I had a recurring event that I did for several years called Net Night, and it was all for networking. And what I realized early on is that people do not know how to network. And so I quickly had to kind of revamp the event to make it more useful. And what I did was we identified people that were well networked. They were quite social. They didn't have issues kind of walking into a room and noticing people that were the wallflowers, right? And not kind of moving around. And we literally put them through a training of some sort. where they were then called connectors. And their purpose for the evening was to kind of just survey the room and to find people who needed to be connected, because again, they knew a lot of the folks, right? And they would help kind of break that ice. And it was a big hit to this day. And I think that when I did this, we're talking about, 10 plus years ago, definitely 10 plus years ago. But when I did this, even to this day, people still say you need to bring that night back. And I think it's because of what you're sharing with us, which is that people feel much more comfortable networking when they feel like there's a little bit of support. So just having those connectors, because what they would do is walk up to a connector, if nothing else. The connector would talk to them. Then once the connector is speaking to them, they're like, oh, well, let me introduce you to so and so. So anyway, I wanted to share that.
I love that. And you and I have something else in common. I didn't know this. I used to work at a chamber as well, at the St.
Oh,
Louis Regional Chamber. That's what
oh,
got me to
fantastic.
St. Louis. And I loved the chamber industry.
Yes, yes, likewise, likewise. We can probably spend a whole hour talking about
We
the
could.
chamber world. So much to share there. But Tracy brings up a good point. Be careful about the question, where are you from? Know where you're really from, because we know that in this space, when sometimes people present that question, it's a question where we really are asking another question. So I do want to highlight that. So thank you so much, Tracy. Okay, so your TED Talk has been pretty popular, and you share even more practical ways that you can network your way to your next. So can you unpack that phrase for us? It's very intentional, and I
Sure.
think I know where you're going, but if you could give us an example of when this mindset has opened up doors in your own life.
Hmm. Yeah. So, one of them will be I was actually in a Zoom and Hollywood Squares, right? So it's people that you don't know.
Right.
And I like to, when I can, if in advance I know who's going to be there, I'll just quickly, because it's easy, right? Look people up, go like on LinkedIn, for example, and see, what people do. And I had actually saw a gentleman that worked in London for a company I hadn't heard of, but the title kind of got my attention. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something around um inclusive excellence, something like that. So I actually just sent a direct note in the chat to say, hey, notice this title, very interesting, tell me a little bit more about what you do. So he started telling me about, he works for a company in the UK that is I would say like an HR outsourcing type of company, and they have discovered that this whole issue around inclusive leadership is something that if their clients don't mention it, something that they actually, bring to bear. And I was like, oh, and he was talking about some other segments in terms of how they integrate that into their business. They also have an inclusive excellence conference every year. I think it's like their fourth year, and they're in over 100 countries, and they do this virtually. I was like, wow, that's what an investment. So we just kind of went back and forth. And I was telling him a little bit about the work that I do in terms of cultural fluency and inclusive excellence in terms of my teaching. So, the long story short, this is a virtual chat. He does
Yeah.
not know me, I do not know him. That turned into an opportunity for me to be the closing speaker at their inclusive excellence conference, um, where I was actually on the stage with their CFO and their CEO. And it was actually, an engagement that I enjoyed, and where I got quite a bit out of it, because when you think about this whole inclusive excellence component, it's still very much alive, in other parts of the world. So to actually be pulled in to be able to gain an opportunity to speak, um, it just came out of this opportunity to chat in a meeting that I didn't even intend for it to do that, right? So when I say networking to your next, you never know how your goals can be fulfilled. It could be in any corner of the room, and it could be a virtual room. You just don't know. So when I say networking to your next, that means don't let opportunities slip by or take opportunities for granted that are right before you. Use the resources that you have, use the places and spaces that you're in, because you never know how your goal can be met from that particular instance.
Yeah, that is so good. Kudos to you for taking that shot, because it landed you an opportunity, and it sounds like
Hmm.
a very valued new relationship. And so,
Yes.
again, this is something that I think all of us need to have into our consideration set, right? The degree in which, the frequency that we do it, I think it needs to match kind of our personalities, right? Because we don't want to exert energy that causes us to be frustrated by, the phenomenon of networking. I do think we need to kind of rebrand it. But when you were talking about the fact that the success story of, the impact of your networking just a moment ago, what it led me to think about is that you did that all virtually. And
Yes.
again, I mentioned at the beginning, that right now, when we think about visibility in the workplace, it can feel as though there's less opportunity for that because of the distributed workforce. People are not all in the same places. A lot of people are working remote, and even if they have return to office kind of policies, sometimes you get to pick and choose which days, and you don't know who else is going to be there on those days. And so, what advice do you have, Gisele, for individuals? Maybe I think about young professionals who are still kind of finding their way, or even maybe some professionals who have been in the job market for quite some time, but they're looking for that added visibility to be able to be in the consideration set for upward mobility. What are some ways in which those individuals could, in consideration of their hybrid, work environment, still continue to keep visibility and networking, at the center of their consideration set?
Right. So I would say two things. So first, on the days when you're in the office, make the most of those days. There is something to I would say being what I'm going to call politically astute at work, right? And a part of being politically astute at work is being visible at work. So the days when you come in, it's real easy to just go to the meetings that are on your calendar, right? But what I like to do, I mean, I'm in an environment where I have the option, but I typically go into the office because there are things that happen there that do not happen when I'm virtual. So
Yeah.
one, just in the hallways, I can't tell you how many times I've resolved an issue or found the answer to something or learned something new by just walking the hallways. I know that sounds very, cliche, but
No, but it's good. Yeah, you're
yeah.
so right. You're
So
so
I would
right.
say one thing I do, I walk around, right? So where I work, we actually have two buildings where my business colleagues are. So also just to also get out of just sitting at my desk, I get
Yeah.
up and I just walk, and you'll run into people. So that's one thing, right? But secondarily, what I do is I intentionally set up coffees or your favorite daytime beverage, right? Because to be inclusive, you may not drink coffee. Okay. So I'll set up a lunch or I'll set up a coffee with someone and knowing that I'm going to be in office. I just know if I'm going to be in office that day, I'm just going to make sure that I have at least one meeting on my calendar that is just a one-on-one, nothing to, and really open, right? Not necessarily even with an agenda, but hey, I just want to get to know you. And I will tell you that works out very well. There was someone in my office, when we talk about being politically astute, think about the people sometimes who you may shy away from, like for whatever reason, you're like, I really don't even want to be on that person's agenda. I want to be about that person at all. That's the
Right.
person. That's the person you need to meet with. And I've
Yes.
done that because it's uncomfortable, right? So I started having coffee with this person, and it has paid dividends. And the reason I did it, I went to a session on political astuteness, and they talked about the importance of this, and they made us write down who are the people that you avoid, right? And made you think about,
Wow.
well, why do you do that? Why do that?
Yeah.
And they were like, you need to fix that. So I forced myself, and I will tell you, it paid dividends because there was something else. And in case this person watches, I won't say so much about it. But there was something that I ended up needing from that person, and I got a pass because I had built relationships through these coffees. And it got to the point where this person would then ask me for coffee.
Love that full circle moment. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
So
that is
that's
really good.
So I think that's
Yeah.
important. And I would say also, don't take virtual for granted, right? So if you're someone that does a lot of virtual meetings, you know, do what I did, like in the chat. It's real easy just to say, see who's going to be there. If there's someone you've been wanting to get to know, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, Susie, can we have a virtual daytime beverage together? You can still network virtually as well. And sometimes we have
Absolutely.
no choice because we're working in two different cities or two different states. But when you think about, what's happening in the world today, there's a lot of downsizings going on also in terms of
Yeah,
roles. And it's a lot easier to hold on to a job when people know who you are,
so
because
true.
they're going to say, oh, I know that. And if they don't know you, right, and you're sitting in a room and you're trying to make a decision, and I don't know that person, well, I don't necessarily have any type of relationship with that person. So
You're
that
so
person,
right. And
I may not
right,
necessarily
longer,
raise my hand.
indifferent. You're so right, Gisele. And right, longer, indifferent, fair or unfair. That is so much truth to that. I remember just a recent conversation with someone as we were planning for a trip that was gonna, have us away for about, 2 weeks. This person literally mentioned, I don't know if I can be away for 2 weeks right now, just because they're doing a whole lot of reorganizations, restructuring. I need to be seen. And I thought that is real. That is real. So you've shared so much. I recall and a previous employer, several years ago, where one of the VPs was notorious for doing what he referred to, or the agency actually started referring to as drive-bys. And literally, he was just walking the office. That was part of his routine. He was just walking the office, every single floor, several times a day, and it was to stop and see what he could, to stop and engage with somebody that maybe he normally does not engage with. And that was a very intentional part of his practice of networking, building relationships, being visible, and having people to be visible to him as well. So I love that idea, and I remember I started adopting it. Another practice that I've seen some people do is they will have something that is an attraction point at their space. It could be a candy jar, or it could be, I don't know, something else that's kind of unique that people just kind of like to interact with, like a quick, simple game or puzzle or some type, that you can just do a little bit of as you're passing by. But it was intentional because they said it brings people to my workstation. And I like meeting people. I like
I
networking.
love
I
that.
like talking to people. And I have met so many people that I normally would not have ever crossed paths with in this organization, simply because they come to check out my workspace. And
I
so
love that.
there are just so many things that I think can lighten the load for those of us who may feel like networking is really hard thing to do. I do want to ask you about those times to where someone wants to network with you, and for whatever reason we have just kind of made a decision that no, I'm not really interested. I don't think that's going to be really fruitful for me. Now, don't judge a book by its cover. We never can tell what can lead to opportunities, but there are some times to where that is the disposition. How do you advise people to do that in a way that is still very courteous and leaves them with a, leaves the person with a good impression of them, even if they have to say no?
Right. So this is very, very important point. And sometimes it can be very difficult. So the method that I sometimes use is the truth of the matter. You're working on, because usually this is what happens. I'm like working in different blocks and I have things I'm trying to get done. So I'll say, you know what? For the next 36 days, I am working on this. If you don't mind circling back with me, let's see what we can do then. I do that because oftentimes people will just drop off.
They won't circle back.
They
Yeah.
won't circle back.
That's the challenge. If you do say that, though, you have to be prepared for they're going to
Right.
circle back. And
So to
some
your
folks
point,
will circle back.
right, they will. So then when they do, now then you maybe have to really deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And get under the hood of the purpose of the meeting, right? Kind of understand what that is and try to figure out a way to solve that without having to have a meeting.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I've done that before. I can recall a situation where someone, reached out that I didn't have really a relationship with, but they wanted to network. They wanted to have, virtual coffee. And I was in a really heavy, busy season. And I mentioned that I'm in a really heavy, busy season right now. Can you tell me what you would like to connect on? Give me some contacts. And when they did, I realized this would have been a waste of my time because I can't help you with that. And so then I was able to kind of respond back and say, this is what I suggest. Research this particular company or this group or whatever. And so that is true. Sometimes asking for the context. And I think that the other value point to that particular story is that know why you want to connect and just go ahead and mention that. I think that's a courtesy. Do you find that
Oh,
that's something that works well? People just go ahead and be upfront about why they want to connect?
well, I require that. So
Yeah.
my assistant knows. that if she puts something on my calendar, that she needs to act. Why do you need to meet with her? Right?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
one,
Why?
I don't want to be blindsided,
Very
right?
true. Yes.
So I need to just know what that is, and also for you to be prepared for the meeting, and
Absolutely.
for you to be efficient, because whatever it is that they were meeting with you about, maybe you can bring that to bear at that time, versus if you don't know, you have to meet with them to find out what they want, then you got to come back and meet again. No, it's like, how can we make that most efficient? Tell me what it is that you need, and I can try to
Yes.
help you. And to your point, to the degree that you can solve it without a meeting, hey, I have saved both of us 30 minutes by
Yes.
doing X, Y, and Z. So you can position it that way too, so people don't feel like it's off-putting. It's like, hey, I'm helping you out, helping me out. Who needs more meetings?
Really, really sage advice. Okay, what about those who maybe they're introverts or maybe they're not introverts, they just don't like small talk? Because I hear that a lot too about, oh, I don't like these networking events. I don't like to do a bunch of small talk. I'm just gonna show up right on time for the actual event itself. So what advice can you give people that are, not akin to small talk?
Yeah. So I think those are the people that, they have a decision to make, right? So does it serve you well to just cut the networking out? What is it that you might be missing out on? If you feel you're not missing out on anything,
Yeah, fair.
don't go. Or do, what I was suggesting earlier, do it for, commit to it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Commit to meet one person, two people. And once you've done that, walk away from it.
Yeah.
Don't feel that you have to, and you have to stay forever or for the whole period of time. And I think I've seen some introverts actually just build up um the ability to do. It's just like everything else. It's like it's building a muscle. So I
Yeah.
think once you've done it once or twice, you're like, you know what? I could do one or two people. I could do 15 minutes.
Mhm.
15 minutes is better than doing an hour. 10 minutes is
Yeah.
better than doing 30. So I would say try it out, because I believe that when we just think about if you're working for someone else, um, typically we do very good on what I'm going to call the technical skills, meaning everything that's in the job description.
Sure.
Generally we can do 80 to 120% of that. When we think about being politically astute in a workplace, are we doing that 80 to 120%? Because even though this is not written in the job description,
Yeah.
I consider its other duties not yet assigned,
Yeah.
and for your own ideally your longevity within that organization. People
Yeah.
like people that they can get to know or that they think they know.
So true. Yeah. So very true.
But again, Nika, it's a choice, right?
It is a choice. Yeah. So don't let that overwhelm you. But I will say that maybe a word of the wise to those who are event organizers. I love when people are very forthcoming about what the schedule and the agenda is in advance, because sometimes the networking can be maybe like a whole hour. Maybe I only have the energy for, like, as you said, 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Let me know that so that I can kind of make those decisions on my own. In advance. And so much goodness, practical goodness that you've shared with us today. And I am very, very, very grateful that you've come to share with our community. We have placed your TED Talk into the chat. We've also placed your LinkedIn information. So if you want to connect with Gisele, she's giving you some tips for how to do that today. But we did place her LinkedIn information there. We have about 2 minutes left, and I want to give you the opportunity to close us out in whatever way that feels great. There's a lot that we've discussed, but I'm sure there's a lot more that maybe you're holding in mind. What have you not shared with this community that you really want to socialize before we close out today?
Sure. I would just say, don't allow networking to be, you know, the 1 ton gorilla in your mind, right? Move it out the way so that you can have a better path to hopefully fulfilling whatever the goals are that you have. I say that because I think some people just say absolutely no to it. And what I've learned is I think about what the story I told coming into this podcast today. I would not have gotten those 11 job offers if I would not have went to talk to my leader and my sponsors and my mentors every quarter the way he told me to.
Mm.
Who knows? I may not have I may have had zero. So, what I want people to think about is don't allow the heaviness of networking get in the way of you actually propelling the goals that you have. Think about how it can actually help you accelerate getting to where you want to be.
So solid. Thank you so very much, Gisele Marcus. Yes, give her the claps, all the accolades. Yes, we so
Thank you.
appreciate and value you spending this time with us, and we will definitely stay connected. Again, please make sure that you are making note of Gisele's TED Talk and her LinkedIn information. And yeah, we're looking forward to the masterclass. I see you, Tracy.
I peeked at that and I was like, that's a great idea. Thank you, Tracy.
Awesome. Okay, fantastic. Have a great and safe weekend. We'll look forward to seeing you back again next week for another episode of Intentional Conversations podcast, where we will be hosting the lovely Lisa Hurley. Hope you all will join us. Thank you so very much. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.